Welcome back to another episode of MCL Construction's Pillars of Progress podcast. I'm Travis Justice. You know, when most people think about college athletics, they picture the scoreboard, the highlights, and the trophies. But here on the show, we like to look at the bigger picture and how sports drives progress right here in our community. Our guest today is leading an athletic department that is fundamentally shifting what it means to be a partner in the Omaha community. Vice Chancellor and Director of Athletics for the University of Nebraska at Omaha, Adrian Dowell. Now, under Adrian's leadership, UNO isn't just competing on a national stage. The Mavs consistently rank in the top 20 for Division I community engagement. They are also physically and economically transforming the landscape of local sports. We talk about a lot in this episode, from navigating the massive new waves of the House case settlement and institutional NIL to breaking ground on massive multi-million-dollar training facilities. They are rewriting the mid-major playbook. Adrian, welcome to the Pillars of Progress podcast. Good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
You know, when people think athletics, they may not think, they're a partner in the community, but UNO has been a big partner in the community for a long time. Just give us some of the highlights of what UNO Athletics does in the community.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's a really important subject to me personally, just transition to the Omaha community and state of Nebraska, I think 13 years ago now, and it was something that was really relayed to me that's important to be important pieces of the community, and the more you give to the community, the more the community will give back to you, right? And then just with me being at UNO the last 5 years, that's a huge piece of our institutional mission, like being the affordable and accessible option to the Omaha community. The more successful we are as an institution, by default, the more successful we are as an athletic department, the more, we can do for the community, the more successful Omaha as a city will be as well. So, that's something we preach to our student athletes and our coaches, and I'm so proud of them. I mean, they have really, really embraced this over the past 4 to 5 years, giving back. And, there's actually some benchmarking in the NCAA at the Division I level, and our department overall has consistently been top 20 in Division I in community engagement and service. And so that's not only helped us, right, as we try to fill our stands with fans. They see us out in the community, they come to your games. It's certainly helped us resource-wise, right? But more importantly, one of the reasons we do is to get kids on their campus so they can imagine what it's like to go to college, and for some of them, what it would be like being a student athlete at the Division I level as well.
So I'm sure there's a benchmark with this, but I'm just curious, a successful athletic program, what does that mean for an enrollment for an overall institution? I'm sure you guys have conversations about that, but if you're successful, people come.
Enrollment is a daily discussion. We have a transformative leader in Dr. Joanne Lee, and we are all in the enrollment business, right? And so one of the reasons she is certainly as invested in and leveraged in athletics, just like a lot of schools are nationwide, is because, when you are successful in athletics, what it does for your brand and how trendy it becomes as a really, really viable option for students looking to choose your college. And we've seen in real time over the past 4 to 5 years, like there's no doubt we've won more than we ever have had, and certainly UNO as an institution has become more of a viable option for a lot of local students locally. I mean, if you look at our enrollment and where kids are coming to for UNO, I mean, you'll see a lot of local area high schools that wasn't the case 10, 20 years ago. And I think it's because we've done a better job getting our word out. They see us on TV, having success, certainly competing at the Division I level and winning at the Division I level just makes it a more trendy option for local high school students. And that's a game. That's why you see nationwide a lot of institutions are really putting all their chips in right now in their athletic department.
So when we talk about community involvement, you bring up the way your student athletes are and other things, but let's go to Baxter Arena and the ice there. I mean, it's just not used by UNO hockey, right? I mean, there's other that's a revenue driver just for the fact that you're able to put ice out there, and there's an ice shortage in this community about people being able to use your facilities, from hockey to baseball to softball. Your stuff gets used by others.
Yeah, so we put on over 300 events every single year, and less than half of those are actually UNO athletics events. Most of them are community events. It might be concerts, it might be tournaments, it might be high school state championships, philanthropic events, right? And so, certainly when the investors gave to us for Baxter Arena and Maverick Park, and now with these new facilities coming online, which MCL is a huge part of as well, like just going back to that mission of UNO being the affordable, accessible option, like we are passionate that we share our facilities with the community. And like I said, it's kind of selfish too, right? Number one, yeah, it's great to have that much activity in your facilities, even though it's a lot of work. But we also know as people come to our facilities, they're more likely to come to our games, and they're more likely students to look at UNO as a great option for higher education.
So people may not be aware of the new facilities you are constructing. What exactly are you constructing?
Yeah, so two projects, and actually they became very real as of this week. I literally just came here from Baxter Arena and Lot 24, that's just east of the arena. We're building a $55 million training facility. That'll be the day-to-day home for our volleyball, men's and women's basketball program, but we'll have programmatic pieces in there like academics, sports science, mental health, nutrition, sports performance that's also used by our hockey program, our baseball and softball program. So they have broken ground as of this week. They're moving dirt around. And then the second facility is a $13 million clubhouse that's really going to help us finish out Maverick Park, which is a pretty brand new facility, but this will be the day home for our baseball and softball programs, including locker rooms, lounges, coaching offices, hitting and pitching cages. And as we designed both facilities, certainly you're trying to meet the day-to-day needs for those 6 programs for sure, but also going back to your last question, we also designed it programmatic-wise to be activated to share with our communities as well. And we look forward to doing that.
So does this get all of Maverick Athletics under one roof, or will there still be people over in the, for an old guy like me, I still remember the Sapp Fieldhouse going to the basement.
Hey, my office is still at Sapp Fieldhouse, right? Sapp Fieldhouse, it's a great facility. It's a beauty and a curse, right? First of all, it's existed literally since 1940. So the fact that it's still being used day to day, and right now it houses close to 65% of our operations and staff still right now, right? So this new training facility, Baxter Arena, Maverick Park, the clubhouse, those really help address the exposures of having the facility that size and of that use and certainly of that age. SAP is not going away. It is prime location on campus. So really what's going to happen is we're going to have our revenue sports now on that Scott campus down there in that whole area. So hockey's already there day to day. After these facilities are completed, you'll have men's and women's basketball, volleyball, baseball, and softball there day to day. But SAP Fieldhouse will still be used for Olympic sports. And we do have plans to turf and redo the track inside SAP Fieldhouse as well. And again, going back to that community piece, there's a huge shortage of indoor facilities in Omaha, right? And so not only will that be a game changer for our Olympic sport programs, but also be another asset for us to really, really share with the community.
You hate to look at something as a revenue driver, but being able to offer that community, but in the landscape we're in now in college athletics, right? You have to look for almost every single dollar. Does that help out when it comes to paying for programs and also in the NIL world?
No, it's a huge piece. Just with the impacts in the NCAA versus House case settlement, generating resources however, whenever you can is such a huge priority. The reality is, UNO by default, as a mid-major, and with certainly us onboarding Baxter Arena and Maverick Park, we've already been in this game for over a decade. So I know it's really trending college athletics-wise, where you see even the P4 schools, they're activating their football stadiums, they're doing concerts, they're building entertainment districts. The reality is, we've already had that for the past 10 years at UNO. Again, going back to that data, like we host over 300 events a year. Most of them are not sporting events. You look at the impact the Exarban area has had on Baxter Arena and Maverick Park, and consequence-wise, like we are already in this business of generating resources with programming outside of traditional college athletics events. And ironically, that is where the rest of college athletics is now getting up to speed. So we field a lot of phone calls.
I was going to ask you that. I mean, how many big names call you and go, how'd you do this?
Stop. Like, how do you do this? Like, how do you leverage your staff? Like, how do you tell your staff, for example, like, great, we just had 2 hockey games and 3 basketball games this week. We're putting on the concert. You get that piece. How do you really, really flex your facilities to really, really turn them on to be used for multi-purpose events, right? And so we've learned over the past 2 years that we've got a great staff led by our GM, Michael Smith, Matt Maher, Deputy AD. They are really, really good at understanding the logistics and strategy on how to book, when to book things, while also making sure you're protecting home base, that being the interests of our sporting programs.
How important is it, especially down in the Exarban Village area, right, and Maverick Park, that you coordinate and work hand in hand with the businesses and the development around there?
Yeah, I think it was really, really important probably a decade ago, right? Because no one really knew how this was going to work. Like when you have a sold out hockey game or you're doing graduation number 12 of May and you have so many thousands of people going in the area, what's the impacts on parking? What's the impacts on the local business? But we've really, really hit our speed, in my opinion. So we really, really work closely with the Exarban businesses. We work closely with the Exarban Trust as well. And so I think they see this as a benefit, certainly when we're selling out hockey games or we're having a concert or we're having 28 graduations in May. Those are new customers coming to that area, right? So certainly it takes some coordination, with the businesses, certainly takes some coordination with law enforcement, but we've really, really hit our speed with this. And I think that's where the questions we're getting nationwide is how do you guys pull this off? That's certainly one of the areas that's addressed.
But I'd also say that's a positive for the community because I don't know if Exarban Village would be as flourishing without Baxter Arena, and I don't know if Baxter Arena would be as flourishing without Exarban Village. I mean, that's where communities in a private-public type thing kind of work together.
No doubt. I think that's mutually beneficial, right? And that's again, going back to our facilities, we want to do things and build things in a way that it's also beneficial to the local community. And Exarban's been great for us. We hope we've been great for Exarban, and it's a bright future ahead. And again, as all these colleges nationwide, they're almost trying to hit copy and paste on what we already have. So luckily, we're a decade into this. We've hit our speed, and we're able to share some best practices with other places.
Of course, nothing comes without challenges. You used the term mid-major earlier. What is the biggest challenge about a mid-major besides football revenue? And how many times do you get asked, are you bringing the football team back?
Football wrestling, I get asked weekly, literally, especially during the World Series, right? No doubt. So the way I would describe this, when you're a mid-major AD, like you start every week in the corner, right? You have to scrap and crawl for everything you can get. Certainly we talked about generating resources when you can, but also saving a dollar when you can is hugely crucial. It's so big because your margin of error is so thin, right? You can't miss on decisions. You can't miss on personnel because when you do make a mistake, it's compounded just because you can't put out fires of money, right? And so we have to worry about controlling the things we can control. And certainly as college athletics navigates this new era, all right, we got to focus on being the best version of ourselves and making sure we can generate a dollar where we can, and making sure we can save a dollar where we can, to make sure we're also spending our resources and stewarding our resources to the best avenue possible. And so it's just, if I had to summarize it, you have to thread a needle. Like you can't miss at the mid-major level if you're going to be successful with your sport programs. And again, kind of goes back philosophical wise, like why do we want to be successful? And for us, with success in athletics, it really, really conveys a positive light on our institution. Like the more successful we are, the more successful our institution is. And the more, I would say, the more reasonable a viable option of UNO becomes with local students. And that's why UNO's invested in us in an athletics program. That's why we strive to be successful. It's for the benefit of our overall university.
So it's institutional success, but as an athletic department, I mean, is it obviously wins, losses, but it's not, is it conference championships?
Yeah.
Is it national championship? Hockey, I think, is one you can have a legitimate conversation about national championships.
You can. I might have another pro. Softball might have a chance.
That's
right?
fair.
But, so as the world around us is so chaotic, I think it's really important that you're grounded in your guiding principles, right? And for us, number one is get it done academically. Our student athletes, they average a 3.5 cumulative GPA, 95% graduation success rate. Wins and losses are important, but I can sleep at night knowing that we're getting our student athletes across the stage graduation-wise. The reality is, you've heard that NCAA commercial, like 98% of the kids are going pro in something other than sports. That's really the mid-major, right? So like we have to prepare them to really, really support workforce development in this community, and that's something we've done really successful. Number two for us, we talked about, is giving back to our community. Again, we are trending ranked nationally in that area, and I think that's really important that the community sees how invested we are in this area. For us, as we generate these resources, the third guiding principle for us is to create an environment for them to be successful. So think of all the resources we put into sports performance, things like that, mental health, nutrition. I want to give them all the tools to be successful off the ice, off the court, off the field, so when they get on the ice, they're the best version of themselves, right? And then lastly, that fourth guiding principle is it's D1. Like you got to win. You got to win. Like we can be good in all those areas, but if we're not winning, that's usually what moves the needle the most. Luckily, we've been successful the past 4 years, but for us to be a viable relevant option in this market. We understand we've got to chase down championships and compete in NCAA tournaments.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. In year number 1, Omaha did not participate in the House settlement. In year number 2, you did. What did you learn? And the House settlement, for those of you who don't know, it's basically surrounding NIL and whether you help pay back on the settlement that took place. You opted out year 1, went in year 2. What did you learn in that year 1, or what did you want to learn in that year 1 to make sure it was the right thing for you to do?
Yeah, there's a lot of nuances with the House case settlement. And luckily, just with some of the networks we have and national boards we're on, we were able to really know the intricacies of the House case settlement and really the impacts on mid-major. So for us, we're in a unique situation at UNO, Title IX situation, enrollment situation, the sports sponsorships we have. So for us, year 1 was about us learning what worked on other campuses, what didn't work, and certainly, too, with the nuances of the House case settlement, there were certain avenues of technical revenue sharing you were actually able to do without triggering opting in year 1. Now, we have opted in year 2, and if I had to summarize this for you and the fan base and anyone listening, there's sort of 3 pillars of revenue sharing. Number 1 is additional scholarships, right? Baseball is a prime example. You used to only be able to give out 11.7 scholarships, for rosters of 40 plus, right? Now there's hard roster limits sport by sport, but you're also able to give out up to that roster limit in scholarships. So for us, in a certain number of sports, hockey, for example, we're going for X to Y in scholarships. That's a form of revenue sharing. Second bucket of form of revenue sharing is called educated-related benefits, otherwise known as Alston Awards. Ironically, even as an opted-out institution, you were able to do that, and that's something we took advantage of that really drove our strategy, right? But even as we opt in, educated-related benefits where you're able to tie certain educational benchmarks to up to $5,980 per student athlete is a form of revenue sharing too. And then the third bucket is called institutional NIL. And this is certainly the most, I would say, famous part of revenue sharing where, for, a 30 plus page document, you sign the contract, you essentially have the NIL rights for student athletes, and you're able to pay those student athletes within the institutional umbrella for the rights. And so as we opt in year 2, we are certainly taking advantage of all 3 of those opportunities. But as you can see, it's a very complicated dynamic, certainly within the setting of higher education. And again, going back to our place as a mid-major, you got to thread this needle. You can't miss. Like, as we opt in, we got to make sure we're doing it in a responsible way. And we certainly feel like we are prepared for this going into year 2.
I think one of the great things is that, and this goes back to community, is that when you're successful, your stars usually become embraced by the community, right? They have this almost an ownership. Ownership's the wrong word, but it's like, hey, a connection with one of your stars. Now, mid-major has to deal with transfer portal.
Yeah.
How has your department been affected by the transfer portal? And do you like the new possible legislation that's out there where it says, hey, you get one free pass, but after that, you're going to have to sit a year? I mean, how do you regulate that? So you have people who become ingrained to the community, and then they could be gone the next day.
They could, but it goes back to the type of kids we recruit. So even though we're transitioning to this revenue sharing era, right, even at UNO, the last thing we want to do is have student athletes and coaches who are transactional, right? Like, I don't want to come to UNO just because of the money they're going to make. If that's a sole point of your decision base, then this isn't the right place for you. I want to be part of the decision, but guess what? I also want you to come to UNO because of our facilities, because of community, because of a winning tradition, who you're going to play for, the education you're going to get, right? So our coaches have really embraced that. And so that's really, really helped, I would say, mitigate some of the exposure of us having a high turnover roster-wise every single year. Number 2, you have to have some humility, right? Yes, we're a mid-major. So guess what? Outside of hockey over here, if you do have kids, maybe outside hockey, a little bit softball, that do pop, you got to look at it and be ready for those kids maybe go to the P4 level. Our men's basketball program is probably a great example, right? Really, they've had the 3 best kids, in my opinion, in the conference the last 3 years, and those 3 kids have had P4 opportunities, and you can't be mad at a kid for that. But more importantly, if you have some humility as a department, you have coaches who understand that can be a great sell and embrace it. That's helped them otherwise recruit some really, really high-end rosters that maybe otherwise we wouldn't get. It's because you have some proof and concept of kids coming here and popping and having great opportunities elsewhere, right? So it's it's a complicated dynamic.
True.
You know, I would say as you dive into the current proposal within Senate bill, you know, there's a lot of us at the mid-major level who are in favor of this current bill. No bill's perfect, right? Anytime you get the government involved, you can't expect there to be perfection, right? But it certainly is progress in the right direction. You know, the more of if a bill helps our industry sort of get our grasp on transfers and the number of transfers, I think that's positive, because it's easy for us to look at this from an athletics only perspective, but when kids transfer 3-4 times, it's not good academically either, right? Not good for them. It's hard to get them across the stage, and it's really, really hard for institutions to track and also hold them accountable. So I think there are some positives with this current federal bill as well.
So a lot of people watching this will know that you went from Creighton to UNO, but more about you. Where are you from originally? And you know, were you a former student athlete? I know you did some time at West Virginia. Were you watching the Mountaineers at the College World Series?
Yeah. So actually, originally, I am from West Virginia.
Okay.
So I grew up a Mountaineer fan, and certainly close to that institution. I went there in grad school and worked there previously before coming to Creighton. I worked at West Virginia for 6 years. Before I was at West Virginia, I actually worked at the NCAA National Office on the basketball staff, the staff that does March Madness and Final Fours and everything else. So as you mentioned, spent 8 years at Creighton, and that was my introduction to the Omaha community. And then, believe it or not, 5 years ago, got the call to go to UNO, and so I've been here in Omaha for 13 plus years, and UNO's been the perfect fit, right? There's not a lot of people who can take their next job, much less their first AD job, and their commute gets shorter, right? So I was fortunate for that, but always knew I wanted to be in college athletics. Ironically, I was a weird kid, always knew I sort of wanted to be an AD as well. So for that to happen in the community I'm passionate about, much less at my wife's alma mater, that's just stuff you can't make up.
You know, you said you worked at the NCAA office.
Yep.
What did you learn there? Because they're community focused. I've got my issues with the NCAA, but that's not what this podcast is about. But there is a lot of community driven stuff with the NCAA. What did you learn at the NCAA level office that translates into an institution?
Big picture wise, like it's a national organization, right? Driven by the membership. So having to serve so many conferences and so many institutions, that was a good learning experience for me to see that perspective. It's also where I learned a lot about major event management, like Final Fours, the NCAA tournament. Those are big time deals, right? Operationally, logistically, the impacts on the communities, the economic impact, not only for the NCAA and its membership, but also the communities that host these events. It's a big deal, and certainly the overlay with government as well. The biggest thing I learned, and this is something I use literally on a daily basis, is the leveraging of the network you can create by being part of a national office. I mean, even we have multiple staff members at UNO who worked with me at the NCAA. Matt Maher is a great example, but between us at UNO, there's probably not a day, much less a week that goes by that we were not leveraging that network we were able to build at the national office to help benefit UNO. So it was a huge piece of my life. Certainly, you know, you pinch yourself when you're 21 years old and you're in the war room and they're picking teams. I'm like, I made it. It's all downhill from there, right? So, but it's honestly, it's helped UNO tremendously. I mean, even going back to the House case decision, I mean, that was us really leveraging our network to learn, all right, what are the intricacies? How is this exactly going to work? And that's really digesting that information and turning the benefit for UNO.
You know, it's interesting. I've always said the NCAA, because of its size, is reactive, not proactive. I don't know if you agree with that or not. But do you think it's time, because you've brought up mid-major a couple times, that you almost separate the P4 and because there's levels to this stuff, right? I mean, the money's completely different. Do you let the P4s have a separate thing, mid-majors, then D2, D3 on it? Because right now it's like one umbrella that's kind of hard to understand.
I like the one umbrella.
Do you really?
The reality is the P4s, they've got it good. You know, don't listen to them. Like, they've got a pretty darn good deal the way it is, right? They get to keep a lot of their revenues. Trust me, think college football playoff, and they get to share their expenses with the rest of us, right? Like, literally, UNO, even though we don't have football, we're paying some liabilities for football problems tied to this House case settlement. So I think there's a lot of benefit with the one umbrella, especially when you start talking about the national tournaments, right? Even look at this year's College World Series. Guess what? You had a mid-major in there. You had a few mid-majors that made the super regionals, right? And so it's funny. sometimes money disappears once the ball's tipped, once the puck's dropped, once between you get in those white lines. And also, I think that's what really makes us relevant in society today. Like, people like tuning in to see the David versus Goliath battle, in my opinion. So I like it. We're all Division I, and what's really, really cool is like us having to really develop micro strategies on our campus and seeing how that plays out, regardless of how big or small a school is really, really fun. Now, I also understand the pressures that P4s have, right? They certainly have a lot of dynamics we don't have to deal with just because there's a lot of zeros in their ledger that I don't have to deal with, right? So I do think we've done a really good job, Division I landscape-wise, understanding that and trying to give them the flexibility to pivot and address those issues they have. But the elephant in the room is what to do with college football, right? I think college football is unique, certainly at the FBS level, certainly with the overlay between the NCAA and the college football playoffs. So at some point in the future, I do see there being an opportunity where maybe FBS football is governed and ran by a separate entity. And I think that would release a lot of other pressures on the rest of the Division I landscape.
Excellent stuff. You're doing so much good stuff in the community. You're continuing to grow that athletic department. UNO has been around for a long time, and it continues to improve and get better. And you're a big part of that. And I thank you for joining us on this episode.
Well, thanks for having me. And as you know, like whether it's you or anything else, like let me know. You know, we're here for the community, so you just got to let us know how we can help. And more importantly, I hope to see everyone in some games coming up this upcoming fiscal year. I think we're in a really good position to have another big year moving forward, and it'll be fun to see how we navigate this despite all the things changing in college athletics. And what I'm really passionate about is that we keep our true sense of DNA, why we're doing this and the impact we have on our community. And, you know, it's been fun seeing how these rosters have been built with a lot of local products as well, and how much the city of Omaha has gotten behind us.
Adrian, thanks so much. And we will see you next time on the Pillars of Progress podcast. Bye-bye.